Right now, you're probably holding a drink or about to grab one. And last time, beer, wine, whatever, you probably just drank it and forgot about it. But what you did is one of the oldest things a human being can do. Older than writing, older than farming, older, honestly, than us. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the history of your glass, hit that subscribe button and join the Chillstix crew because we're about to take you all the way back to where it all began. This story doesn't start a few thousand years ago with the invention of wine or the first brewery. It starts 10 million years ago on a forest floor in Africa. A small primate picks up a piece of fruit that had been sitting on the ground too long. Inside, yeast gets in. Fermentation begins and the fruit starts producing small amounts of ethanol. When that primate ate it, it felt a little drunk. It had no idea why, but it felt good, so it kept coming back for more. Over millions of years, our ancestors didn't just tolerate alcohol, they evolved to look for it. By the time early humans showed up, the taste for it was already built in. It was there long before anyone figured out how to make it on purpose. The question is, when did they figure that out? In 2018, archaeologists were excavating a cave near Haifa, Israel, called Rakefet. It was used by a group called the Natufians about 13,000 years ago. Inside, they found stone mortars carved into the bedrock. When they analyzed the residue, they found traces of wheat and barley that had been soaked, germinated, and left to ferment. That's beer, brewed in a cave 13,000 years ago. Here's what makes that finding so important. The Natufians were not farmers. They hadn't invented agriculture yet. They were still collecting wild grain by hand and hunting animals. They didn't grow the barley, they found it. But somehow, making beer was important enough that they figured that out first. Think about that. Up until this discovery, the story went like this. Humans settled down, started farming, built villages, and then eventually discovered fermentation. Alcohol came after civilization. But Rakefet says the opposite. These people were brewing while they were still nomadic. And they aren't the only ones. About 1,000 years later, someone in southeastern Turkey built something enormous. At a site called Göbekli Tepe, massive stone pillars weighing over 10 tons were arranged in careful circles and carved with images of animals. It was built before farming, before pottery, before anyone had a permanent home. For years, archaeologists couldn't explain why nomadic people would organize the labor to move 10-ton stones up a hill. What would motivate that? Then they found large stone vats at the site with chemical traces of fermented grain. People were brewing at Göbekli Tepe, enough for large gatherings. The current theory is that this site wasn't a home. It was a gathering place for ritual and feasting. People traveled from across the region to come together and drink. This raises a question that's been debated for decades. Why did humans start farming? An archaeobotanist named Patrick McGovern, the leading expert on ancient alcohol, has spent decades arguing that humans didn't start farming to make bread, they started farming to make beer. Bread requires grinding, kneading, and baking. It's complex. Beer is simpler. Soak grain in water, leave it alone, and fermentation happens by itself. And the desire to drink would have been a stronger motivator than the desire to eat grain in a slightly different form. If he's right, then alcohol might be the reason we settled down in the first place. By 7000 BCE, the evidence gets more precise. In a Neolithic village called Jiahu in central China, archaeologists found pottery jars with residue from a fermented drink made of rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn berries. This is the oldest confirmed recipe for alcohol anywhere in the world. And it wasn't crude, it was a blend. Multiple ingredients carefully chosen and combined. Whoever made this knew exactly what they were doing. From there, it only grew. By the time ancient Egypt came around, beer was woven into everything. Workers who built the pyramids were paid in beer, about 4 to 5 liters a day. That was their actual salary. Not coins, not grain, but beer. And it made sense. The water from the Nile was often contaminated, but beer was cleaner. It kept people alive in a way water couldn't. Plus, the brewing process added calories and nutrients. For a laborer dragging limestone blocks in the desert heat, those extra calories mattered. Beer wasn't just a drink, it was lunch. Then there was the religious side. The Egyptians believed beer was created by Osiris and given to humans as a gift. It showed up in temple offerings, burial rituals, and medical prescriptions. Doctors mixed herbs into beer and prescribed it for everything from stomach problems to infections. One drink was doing the job of a paycheck, a water filter, a meal, a medicine, and a prayer, all from the same cup. So here's the full picture. 10 million years ago, your ancestors were drawn to fermented fruit. 13,000 years ago, they were brewing in caves before they knew how to farm. 12,000 years ago, they possibly were building the first monuments just to have a place to drink together. 9,000 years ago, they had recipes. 5,000 years ago, entire civilizations were running on it. Alcohol didn't come after we built the world. There's a real possibility it's the reason we built it at all. Every time you have a drink, you're continuing something that started before your species had a name. The process changed, the ingredients improved, the cups got fancier, but the impulse is the same one that made a small primate reach for overripe fruit on the forest floor 10 million years ago. We just learned how to make it on purpose.